Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're looking at Crimea, a place that, well, keeps shaping global politics.
Really does. And recent talk about its status just brings its strategic importance right back to the forefront.
Absolutely. And for us, staying informed, especially on these core international issues, it's vital. We know many of you are tracking this for UPSC preparation too, so it's doubly relevant.
Right. It keeps coming up.
We're using an article from the Indian Express and some related news to really get under the skin of why this peninsula matters so much.
So what's the mission here, you think?
Good question. I think it's about pulling out the critical insights, the history, the geography, its role now to give you clarity without, getting totally bogged down.
Makes sense. Keep it focused.
And this recent news trigger, Donald Trump suggesting Crimea stays with Russia, Ukraine accepts a deal. It's definitely stirred the pot.
It certainly has. Makes understanding the fundamentals even more urgent, I'd say.
So where do we start peeling back those layers?
Well, the foundation has to be geography, doesn't it?
Yeah, the Indian Express piece really points to that. Crimea's location just gives it this inherent advantage.
It does. Not just for Crimea itself, but maybe especially for Russia.
What is it specifically about the geography, that peninsular shape?
Exactly. It juts out into the Black Sea, offering, a kind of unsinkable aircraft carrier, if you will.
Right.
Control over sea lanes, a platform for influence.
Less a piece of land, more a strategic piece on the board.
That's a good way to put it. And you can't understand that without linking it to Russia's, well, historical goals.
Which brings us straight to that long quest for warm water ports. It's almost a cliche, but it's true, isn't it?
It is absolutely fundamental. Think about it. So much of Russia's coastline is Arctic, frozen for months.
Right. Unusable for trade for the Navy.
Exactly. So access to ice-free ports isn't just nice to have. It's a strategic necessity for their economy, their security. It's shaped centuries of policy.
And the Black Sea is central to that. The article calls it Russia's warmest waters, their only direct path to the Mediterranean.
Via the Turkish Straits, the Bosphorus, and Dardanelles.
Crucial point. And for anyone studying for UPSC, these maritime choke points are key concepts. Why have those straits been so critical?
Well, they're the only way in or out, really. The single gate between the Black Sea and the wider world's oceans.
So control, or at least reliable access.
Dictates everything. Russia's ability to project naval power south, to trade freely, to influence things in the Med. It's a huge lever.
Okay, let's zoom in on Crimea itself. Sevastopol, that name comes up constantly.
Ah, yes. The crown jewel in many ways.
The article mentions it's a deep water port. Why is that detail so important compared to other ports?
Depth matters for big ships. Aircraft carriers, large destroyers, submarines. They need deep harbors. Sevastopol provides that, unlike some other shallower ports in the region.
So it's ideal for their Black Sea fleet.
Absolutely. It's been the home base, the strategic linchpin for Russia's Black Sea naval power since, the 18th century?
Well, that long.
Yeah. And its importance only grew after the Soviet Union collapsed, causing all sorts of tension with Ukraine. It wasn't just a port, it became a symbol.
Deeply tied to their identity and strategy. You can see why control would feel non-negotiable to Moscow.
Precisely. Which leads us into that tricky post-Soviet period.
Right. The 1997 Kharkiv Pact. The article mentions Russia being allowed to keep the Sevastopol base, even though Crimea was part of Ukraine.
It was a pragmatic arrangement, I suppose. Acknowledged Ukraine's sovereignty, but gave Russia a long lease on this critical base.
A way to manage an awkward situation.
Yes, it provided some stability. They even extended the lease in 2010 out to 2042.
And that didn't last.
No. Russia tore up that agreement during the 2014 annexation. That action really showed how determined they were to secure permanent control.
Let's shift to that period, 2014. The political upheaval in Kyiv, then the annexation. Can you walk us through that sequence?
It happened fast. February 2014, you had the ousting of the pro-Russian president, Yanukovych, by a pro-Western movement.
The Maidan Revolution.
Right. And Russia's reaction was almost immediate. Troops, often unmarked, appeared and seized key sites in Crimea.
Strategic locations, government buildings.
Airports, military bases, yes. Then the Crimean parliament declared independence, requested to join Russia, and Moscow formally annexed it by mid-March.
All very rapid and widely condemned internationally.
As a violation of international law, yes, a major turning point.
So what were the main drivers for Russia taking that step? The article points to Sevastopol, obviously, and fears about NATO.
Securing Sevastopol was paramount. The new government in Kiev was much less friendly towards the base lease. Losing it was likely seen as unacceptable in Moscow.
A strategic nightmare for them.
Definitely. And then there was NATO, the prospect of Ukraine eventually joining NATO.
Would put the alliance right on Russia's Black Sea doorstep.
Exactly. In a region they'd long considered their sphere of influence, a sort of Soviet lake, historically.
Yeah.
That was a red line for the Kremlin.
You can frame it as classic great power security concerns from their perspective.
You could. And the article also notes something else important.
Its role as a launchpad.
Yes. Controlling Crimea wasn't just about the port. It gave them a ready-made platform for any future military action against Ukraine.
Which we unfortunately saw play out in 2022.
Absolutely. Having Crimea made that southern front much easier for them to open up. It demonstrates that enduring strategic value.
Okay, thinking about the situation now, Ukraine holds Kherson City, but Russia controls much of the oblast around it, and that affects the North Crimean Canal.
It does. That canal is the main freshwater source for Crimea, historically drawing from the Dnieper River in Kherson.
So controlling the territory around the canal's intake
Gives Russia control over a critical resource for the peninsula's viability.
Yeah.
Water security is huge there.
Right. Let's pivot to the recent trigger for this discussion, Donald Trump's comments.
Yes, the idea that Crimea should just stay with Russia, and maybe Ukraine should accept that in a peace deal.
He brought up the history, didn't he? Crimea being Russian for centuries before Khrushchev transferred it in 1954.
He did. That narrative aligns very closely with President Putin's view, portraying the transfer as a historical mistake or anomaly.
So the implication of Trump's proposal, as reported, is basically legitimizing the annexation.
De facto recognition, yes. It would solidify the current situation, securing Crimea, and by extension, that canal access for Moscow long-term.
And Ukraine's reaction. Predictably strong, I assume.
Absolutely resolute rejection. President Zelensky, others, they've consistently said ceding any territory is unconstitutional and unacceptable.
For them, Crimea is Ukraine. End of story.
That's the firm position, yes.
So let's talk broader risks. What are the potential consequences if, hypothetically, the world accepted Russia's annexation? The Indian Express raises concerns.
It's a major point, especially for, thinking about the future international order. A key concern is precedent.
You mean it could embolden others?
Precisely. Analysts argue it might signal that changing borders by force can eventually be accepted. That could encourage Russia towards further actions.
Or other regimes with territorial ambitions. The article mentions China and Taiwan.
That's often cited as a potential parallel, yes. The worry is it undermines the principle that you don't acquire territory through aggression. A core tenet of international law, really.
A very dangerous precedent for global stability.
That's the fear. It raises profound questions about the rules-based order.
Okay, so wrapping this up. It's clear Crimea's importance isn't just one thing, it's layered.
Deeply layered. You've got the geography in the Black Sea,
Russia's need for warm water access, the Mediterranean connection,
the specific prize of the deepwater port at Sevastopol.
and its more recent tragic role as a staging ground in the current conflict.
And for those of you focusing on UPSC, connecting these dots, geography, history, strategy is crucial for understanding current affairs and international relations. It touches on so many aspects.
Security, economics, international law.
It's all intertwined there.
So we'll leave you with this to think about. Given all this, the history, the strategic stakes, the very firm positions on all sides, what are the realistic long-term possibilities for Crimea and the Black Sea region?
It's a tough question. No easy answers there.
Yeah.
Requires really weighing all those complex factors.
Worth pondering, though. We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable context and clarity on why Crimea remains such a critical point on the map.
Indeed. Keep exploring the history, the different perspectives, and the implications.
If you found this useful, especially for your UPSC prep or just understanding the world, do give us a like, subscribe for more deep dives, and let us know your thoughts or questions in the comments.
We always like hearing from you.
Remember, this discussion drew insights from reporting in the Indian Express, so do check out their work for more detail. Thanks for joining us.